Okay, I think at long last the feature underground is live. I'm assuming I'm assuming this is working. I'm assuming everyone can hear me. All one people who are watching. Um Let me start with this. Have you fallen into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature underground. My name is Hunter Lanier, and this is a very special live episode of the feature underground. Um, this episode, I'm assuming people will come back and watch this later. This episode will probably suck because it is me experimenting with YouTube Live. I have never used YouTube Live before. It has been quite the journey getting here. Um, my laptop has 4 USB-C ports, and everything that connects to a laptop has USB-A ports. So it has been um, a trial, a tribulation. Many good people have been lost. All right, let me see what I can even do with this YouTube machine. I don't know if people can hear me or not, but hopefully the audio is good. And my camera just turned off. Okay, I'm realizing that I'm going to have to keep turning back on the camera. Wonderful. But this is why you do a first episode. It's so you learn. You learn all the mistakes and then you fix them. Okay, I can mute. That works. Share screen. I guess this thing's my audio, maybe. Okay. What does this do? All right, I think pop out dashboard. Not important to me at this moment. All right. It looks like I can't do that much. So I'm just going to get right into it. So I asked 4 questions for this inaugural episode of Feature Underground Live, and I got one, and that'll be my topic for this very special, very live episode. Let me pull up the exact wording so I get it right, and I would like to attribute the question to its proper attributor. Posts. So also I will say for housekeeping, my plan is to do this live episode every Monday. I guess now at 7 p.m. That seems to work for me. Sunday gets into my other work a little bit. So I think Monday at 7 p.m. is going to be the date and time going forward. Let me look at this. And that's going to be annoying. But you know what? I'm going to trudge through it. Okay, how do I find my posts? And I'm thinking maybe I might even edit this episode later and re-release some if I say something interesting. Have a standalone video. Alrighty. Where's my frickin' posts? Okay. So the question I got here was from Jimmy Helter. He asks, has your opinion changed in any way about the Brutalist after the AI news? So, if you're not aware, the controversy around the Brutalist right now is that Brady Corbet, the director and co-writer, and David Yancho recently did an interview with Red Shark, which is apparently a website that does interviews. They seem to specialize in cameras and camera technology. But part of that interview involved section on AI. And David Yancho comes out and says, hold on, let me find it. He basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but to paraphrase, he says that they used AI on the film in two ways. The first was to modulate the Hungarian accent of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. Now, they modulated it not while they were speaking English, but while they were speaking Hungarian. And the reasoning is that they feared that real Hungarian speakers would instantly be able to pinpoint the phoniness of the accent if certain vowels and certain pronunciations weren't exactly. And I'm going to activate the camera again. By the way, if you're watching this and you know how to fix that, feel free to let me know. Anyway, so the idea was that they were worried that Hungarian speakers would immediately be able to pinpoint the inaccurate nature of their accents. So what Jancho did, who is himself Hungarian, is that he fed his own speech into the AI model, and then used that as a tool to crank up or crank down the accents on Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. I'm imagining it's like having a treble slider or a bass slider, some kind of tool in that way. So, and then the other thing they did was that at the very end of the movie, spoiler, I guess, if you haven't seen it, there's a slideshow of fake buildings by the not titular character, but the main character, Laszlo Toth, fake buildings that he would have created, and they made them look like kind of crappy 80s slideshow images. So before I get into my thoughts on this, I do want to kind of set the table on how I approach any kind of debate or argument or controversy, which is that I always want to give the opposing side or both sides the benefit of the doubt. I always assume that everyone has reached their position with the best of intentions. Because if in an argument, if you assume that the other side has reached their position because they're a bad person or they have ulterior motives, then you're not discussing or arguing the point at hand. You're fighting against an evil person for whom all of their points are either tricks or lies. So that's just not conducive to a healthy discussion. So even though I share the stigma that AI should really not be very involved in any kind of creative process, I do understand where they're coming from in their use of it in the Brutalist, and I'm not totally against it. Now, let's get into it. So, number one, for the speech thing, my main point is going to be this, and I haven't really heard anyone see this perspective yet, because how they used AI in this case, I don't think is a big deal, because they used it as a tool. They used it as one would use CGI to modulate an image. But the main thing here is that I'm not a big fan of this chasing the dragon of perfection. So they were really uptight that Hungarian speakers would not believe the accents of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. Well, it's a movie, so not everything has to be exactly right. You know, I watched a Sam Peckinpah movie recently called Cross of Iron. And it's honestly quite confusing because it's about the German military, but the main character is James Coburn, who is in the German military in the movie, but he has an American accent. One of his leading officers is James Mason, who is also a member of the German military in the movie, but has a British accent. And then, of course, there are members of the German military that have British accents. So So what I'm getting at is that there is a suspension of disbelief that is just kind of the audience will just kind of roll with things. So this idea that they would feel the need to even use AI in this case for the language, I think is a misguided on their part. And all of this controversy doesn't really need to exist, in my opinion, at all. Um, Now for the other thing, for the using it to make the images of the buildings. Hold on, let me pull up my notes here and make sure I said everything. Um, that one is a little murkier because the explanation on Courbet's part is that they did it to save time and money. And that's where it gets a little sketchy when you have studios and filmmakers cutting corners, so to speak, uh, and using AI in that way. Yeah, you could say that's a slippery slope. But the thing is, if David Yancho hadn't opened up his big mouth and said that they used AI for this, would anyone have noticed? I don't think so. And in fact, no one did notice that I know of. So if you don't notice the AI, is it really a problem? I don't know exactly where I land on that question. I tend to think that the problem with AI isn't that it's going to be used in movies, because it will be used in movies. I think the problem with AI is that it will be used in movies and make movies worse. That's the fear. If AI is being used and not making the movies worse, then I don't think I see a problem with using AI. Um, that's my initial thought on it. Um, Now, of course, my thoughts could change. I can't. It's not that hard to envision a future where Adrian Brody wins Best Actor at the Oscars this year, and for the rest of eternity has a little asterisk, a little Barry Bonds asterisk by his name. Will AI become the steroids of filmmaking? I don't know. Uh, but I do remember when one of the Planet of the Apes movies, one of the new ones came out, maybe the first one, the first new one, not the Tim Burton one, the Andy Serkis one. And I remember there was talk, I think, of Andy Serkis being nominated for Best Actor. And I remember being hesitant at the time because the fear was that you don't know how much of that performance was in front of the camera and how much of it was post production tweaking. And I think as AI becomes more and more prevalent, that question is going to also become more prevalent. Um, Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to say on this? I do want to keep this episode short because this is an experimental episode. I just kind of wanted to see if this would even work. And so far, the only problem has been that camera turning on and off, going to sleep. Well, so let me just say flat out as a response to what was your name, sir? I can't remember the post. Jimmy Helter. The answer is no. It really hasn't changed my opinion of the movie. For the reason that I said is that I didn't notice it. If Yancho hadn't come out and said they used AI, I would not have noticed. So if filmmakers can use AI in seamless ways that enhance a movie, then I'm not totally against it right now. And of course, you get into the questions of will it take away jobs? I'm not prepared to answer that. I don't know. I do kind of think, though, in a general sense, that technology getting rid of jobs isn't that big of a deal because that's just the way the world moves forward, is that jobs go away. No one works in a printing press anymore, really. I mean, I guess they do make print, but some jobs just go away naturally and new ones arise. So let me think. Is there anything else I wanted to say here before I end this most wonderful first live episode? Oh, I did want to touch on, while we're talking about AI, I did want to touch on Paul Schrader because Paul Schrader made some headlines recently for a Facebook post of his, which seems to be his haunt is Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and read Paul Schrader's post word for word so I don't screw it up. Paul Schrader writes, and I quote, "I'm stunned." That was all caps. "I just asked ChatGPT for okay, camera, come on. I just asked ChatGPT for an idea for a Paul Schrader film. Then Paul Thomas Anderson, then Quentin Tarantino, then Harmony Korine, then Ingmar Bergman, then Rossellini, Lang, Scorsese, Murnau, Capra, Ford, Spielberg, Lynch. Every idea ChatGPT came up with in a few seconds was good and original and fleshed out. Why should writers sit around for months searching for a good idea when AI can provide one in seconds?" So, as much as I kind of can understand the AI usage in the Brutalist, um, I'm not quite as on board with Paul Schrader's sudden belief that AI can just come up with story ideas just as well as anyone else, just as well as humans, I should say. Um, I do want to point. I do want to kind of preface my opinion also, even though I already started saying it. Retroactive preface that I don't know how serious this post is. I question the seriousness, the sincerity of his post here. Um, but the problem, I think AI can write stories and screenplays, yes. And I think they can write as good. I think they can write stories as good as some writers, bad writers, hack writers, but I think AI can reach that hack level. If you were to have Chat GPT, for instance, write 5 episodes of NBC procedural drama number 4, and then you had a NBC network writers room write 5 episodes of the same show, and then I were to and then I were to watch each group, maybe I wouldn't be able to tell which one was AI, because those types of shows are so formulaic by nature. And one thing AI is good at is recognizing and repeating formulas. So in that sense, yeah, I think AI can write bad stories. I think AI can write um, background noise network TV stories, many of which have made it to streaming now. Now streaming is kind of just as bad as network TV, unfortunately. So, and also I did do an experiment where I asked some AI fella. I asked them to write me. I did it myself. I said, write me a Quentin Tarantino story. I said, write me a John Ford story. And they weren't. I don't know what Paul Schrader was looking at, but mine were not good. The Quentin Tarantino one, the AI came up with was called "Blood on the Vinyl," and you could see very much that it just was recognizing certain stereotypes about a director's style and just replicating them, which isn't what directors do. I don't think, you couldn't have showed AI everything from Reservoir Dogs to The Hateful Eight, and then it would have come up with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You just can't make that progression. Because the whole point of artists is that they evolve, they change. Some things stay the same, but maybe in a different way. So there's too many variables that make humans unique. As AI progresses, maybe that will be less of a unique thing to humans. I don't know, but as it stands right now, I do not think it's anywhere close. So, and also all this talk of AI writing stories, I'm reminded of I'm gonna look at your comments when I'm done talking, but because it'll distract me if I look at it while I'm talking. Um, Another movie I think of is Fargo, because there's that scene in Fargo where Marge has dinner with that Asian guy, the Asian guy who's still holding this flame for her after all these years. And that scene is one of the best scenes in the movie, and it's one of the most memorable scenes of the movie. And yet it has nothing to do with the movie. It's memorable partly because it's so it doesn't seem to fit. But in some ways it does fit. Um, in ways that are kind of intangible, but you can kind of parse out. And would AI ever write a scene like that? Would it ever veer from the path? Um, it seems to me like AI would be good at writing plots, but all these little unique character nuances, I think, are going to be, at least right now. I don't know how good it will AI will progress, but as of now, I just think, yeah, can AI write a plot? Plots are the most simplistic, uninteresting aspects of movies, and I think one of the best ways you can kind of point out a bad writer is how much do they rely on a plot? How much do they rely on plot devices? So um, I think that's all I got to say on that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm reading your comments, Baz. Original quality. I did have an issue with the film's posturing. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. If if AI doesn't degrade a movie, if it isn't obviously making a movie worse, then I think it's a little more difficult to call it a poison to filmmaking. Certainly there are ways you can use it that would be awful. But it's like when you think of AI images, they're not terrible because they're AI. They're terrible because they all have that same look. If every movie started to have a similar look, yeah, we'd be in trouble. Okay. I've gone a lot longer than I thought I was going to go for this one since I only got one question. And except for this camera turning off and on, I think this was fairly successful. I hope people will come back and watch this episode later. So I think that's going to be it. I need to have dinner. You need to have dinner. It's late. We all need to get cozy and go to sleep. Okay. So yes, if you did not hear me, I'm going to be doing these, I think, every Monday at 7 p.m. Thank you, Baz. You're very much appreciated. Um, if the angle looks a little different on the live video, it's because I wanted to have access to my computer, and it's all right here. And I really don't have a good setup for live streaming, but I've kind of made it work. Alrighty. Well, I do want to say that one reason I'm starting to do these live videos more is because we get into these times of the year like January, February. There's not a lot of interesting movies coming out. Hence, there's not a lot of reviews for me to do. I did want to review Presence, the Steven Soderbergh movie, but I got caught in traffic and I was going to get there late, and it was not meant to be. So I don't know what. Oh, the next review probably I will. If you didn't see Severin Films, who they also gave me Severin Films, they gave me a sticker. Severin Films. If you watched my Russ Meyer video, they are also releasing 2 more Russ Meyer films on 4K Blu-ray, new restorations. Motorcycle Nightmare, which is one of my favorite Russ Meyer movies, and Up, which I have not seen. I did request 4K Blu-rays this time, not just regular Blu-rays, 4K Blu-rays. So I'm assuming they're going to send those to me, and I will review those movies as well. So until then, as always, well, the camera has turned off. I'm going to turn it back on for one last goodbye. I just want you to remember that every day underground is a good day. Okay, now I have to remember or find out how to turn this thing off. How do I stop? Thank you for everyone who tuned in. You are very much appreciated. You are the lifeblood. You are the oil that churns this machine of this channel. Thank you.